It's almost ironic yet predictable that the most holiest and devout of people are the ones that get targeted by demon possession the most. Demons can't have these nuns just walking around all celibate and holier than thou, can they? They have to cause mayhem, havoc, disrupt their devotion to God by any means possible. I guess the ones closest to God are the ones that also pose the most threat against the demons, so very predictable targets. What is up, you guys? Hope you're having an awesome day. I'm your host Ayman Hasan and welcome back to another video. Before I get into it, we have a scary playlist for you to binge right here if you want to binge after this, because you never know, maybe you're just in that mood, maybe you just want to see more videos. Click here regardless. But without further ado, today I'm going to be looking at the top 10 scary times demons possessed nuns. Starting us off with number 10 is Satan's Enigma. Back in August of 1676, 31-year-old Sister Maria Crucifissa della Concisione was found dead in her cell. Also, can we get a slow clap to me for even pronouncing that correctly? Yeah. Her face was covered in ink and she was found holding a letter written in a code that took centuries to decipher. Maria said the devil wrote the letter to try and get her away from the path of God. The letter that featured 14 lines translated to this: God thinks he can free mortals, the system works for no one. Perhaps now Styx is certain. In Roman and Greek mythology, the river Styx separates the living world from the netherworld. Maria was also said to have bipolar disorder or schizophrenia and was fighting against numerous evil spirits. I feel like the message had to be written by her while she was possessed or something, because after the fact, her behavior at the convent became very bizarre, and it's like, hello, Sister Maria, or what you doing? But what does the letter even mean? It took centuries to decode, surely it's important, but I feel like it just got decoded and no one cares. Coming in at number 9 is Sister Madeleine de Demondol. So back in 1611, there occurred a series of demonic possessions amongst the Ursuline nuns of Aix-en-Provence. 17-year-old aristocrat Madeleine entered the convent after having admitted she had had a relationship with Father Louis Graffiti. She was then sent to Aix to get away from Father Louis, but by 1608, things got ugly. The girl started showing signs of being possessed. She would shake, convulse, and it seemed to be contagious since the other nuns started doing the same. So many exorcism attempts were undertaken, but nothing was successful. In 1610, the exorcisms were still going on, and it was like the girls were all in competition with each other, like who was the most possessed. Like, oh, you can speak in tongues in Latin? Well, I can levitate, so there's that. Now, they all had their own demon personalities, and it was suspected that Father Louis had seduced Madeleine and caused her to become possessed. Almost all the nuns involved had some sort of infatuation with Father Louis. He was later tortured, wherein he confessed to having a pact with the devil, after which he was killed via strangulation and being burned. I mean, I'm not gonna say he low-key deserved it, but he high-key deserved it. At number 8, we have the Ursuline nuns. The case of Father Louis and those Ursuline nuns foreshadowed the events, including Father Urbain Ranzy, a Roman Catholic priest that lived in the Loudun part of France. He was under major scrutiny and received a lot of criticism for ignoring his celibacy vow, and if anything, he was known for having sexual relations with many women and as someone who had an elevated sense of lustful depravity. By 1632, he was accused of sending the demon as Modi to enchant a group of Ursuline nuns into committing evil acts and becoming his sex slaves. Mother Superior Jeanne de Agnes claimed she had demonic dreams that Grandier was in, as well as visions of people that had already died. After numerous nuns had similar experiences, they all accused him of seduction and witchcraft, and he was arrested, then acquitted, and then re-arrested. During the second arrest, he was tortured by judges, after which they revealed a contract they found in his bedroom, which indicated he had signed a deal with Satan and many other demons. They saw it as evidence of him making a diabolical pact and convicted him of witchcraft and sentenced him to death. He was burnt at the stake, and rightfully so. Filling at number 7 slot is the murder. Marikika Irina Komichi was a nun who started hearing voices at the age of 23 years old. She thought it was the devil talking to her, telling her she was sinful, but other nuns refused to believe it, and she was treated for schizophrenia. However, she relapsed, and so a monk and 4 nuns tried something else, an exorcism. She was bound to a cross, gagged with a towel, and left in a dark room for 3 whole days with no food or water. That's proper torture. That's not even an exorcism. Like, hello, Human Rights Commission. Sadly, this doesn't end well, and Marikika ended up dying due to dehydration and suffocation. She was meant to go to a nearby village 10 days later, but never showed up. Daniel, the monk who led the exorcism, said he restrained her because she became violent and refused to drink the holy water, whereas a psychiatrist who treated her said this was all a symptom of schizophrenia and that she was most likely just having her first episode. But also this just doesn't add up because they thought that originally and she relapsed, so was it schizophrenia, was it not? Either way, I guess we'll never really figure out what the true cause was, but Daniel and the 4 nuns were charged with aggravated murder and could face 25 years to life. Now at number 6, Alluvia Possessions. A lot of nun possessions going on in France in the 1600s, let me tell you that much. So back in 1625, Sister Madeleine was said to be the first possession victim at the hands of Father Pickard, who apparently gave her magic potions and also got her pregnant. Do none of these people take celibacy seriously? Like, what is the point then? What is the point? Now the possession occurred after his death, and she told authorities 2 men had kidnapped her and taken her to a witch's sabbat where she married the devil and had sex with him. Her confession made other nuns come forward too, who claimed that Father Pickard had taken them to secret sabbats for the same thing. The nuns would contort in unnatural shapes, speak in tongues, be uncontrollably violent, and shout obscenities like there was no tomorrow. Now the Loudun possessions the decade before made this all not really that surprising, but the hysteria made it super public. All the exorcisms were seen by everyone, and eventually Madeleine was imprisoned for life and Father Pickard's body was exhumed and then burned. Cause even in death, we gon' burn your body. Coming in at number 5 is Benedetto. The book The Devil Within recounts the history of demonic possession and features the story of a nun called Benedetto. Back in 1619, Benedetto was interrogated to find out why she'd engaged in a bunch of sexual acts with another nun called Bartolomea. She exclaimed that a male angel called Splendiletto had possessed her and would speak in his voice. But whenever she became him, it seemed like he was more demonic than he was angelic. Anytime it was him speaking, Benedetto was a lot more maniacal and lewd. But also, was she really possessed by a demonic entity, or was she just a scared closeted lesbian who didn't know what else to do? At number 4 is Dark Waters. This 1994 horror film features a convent containing quite a few disturbed nuns. They're seen practicing bizarre rituals that are in no way Christian, and they seem to be protecting or subduing some entity in the catacombs under the building. The main character Elizabeth goes to this convent, which is on a remote island, because that's where her mum gave birth to her right before dying. There she discovers demonic books in the library and gets attacked by a nun. She also finds the nuns whipping themselves in the basement and laying down in some strange formation. Elizabeth tries to figure out where her birth mother is, but the nuns burn alive the woman she tries to speak to. If that isn't bad enough, a nun at the convent called Sarah befriended her, but she's clearly not that good person. She cut up and nailed another nun to a chair. We later find out that Sister Sarah is half human, half demon, and is Elizabeth's sister. The girl's mum was a demon, and she's the one trapped inside the convent, which the nuns were trying so desperately to contain. Filling at number 3 slot are 2 Fingers. This is another story featured in The Devil Within, and it gave me very Reagan from The Exorcist vibes. Apparently there was a nun at this French commune called Auxonne who got possessed. Again, there's only like 2 nuns on this list who aren't French, which is highly suspicious. What is it about French nuns that make them more susceptible to getting demonically possessed? Like, damn poppy. Anyway, during her possession, this nun apparently held up a giant heavy marble vase full of holy water. Now that sounds like a perfectly nunnish thing to do, except for the fact she lifted the entire thing with only 2 fingers. Now at number 2 is Valak, maybe the most infamous possessed nun to exist, even if she is just a fictional character in the Conjuring universe. However, what's not fictional is the demon Valak, who's described in the Lesser Key of Solomon grimoires. Valak as a demon can control, locate, and summon serpents at will, which is quite dangerous yet cool power to have if you ask me. In the movie, the duke that built the castle that is now the monastery was obsessed with the occult and summoned Valak himself back in the day, who took the form of the nun. Obviously in the movie, the demon has more abilities like telepathy, shape-shifting, and the ability to block clairvoyance. Valak kills all the nuns in the monastery and toys with Sister Irene by making her believe she's in the monastery with a bunch of other nuns, when really she's all alone, and Valak had already killed them all. And finally, Animone is Sister Magdalena de la Cruz. This Franciscan Spanish nun was actually honored as a living saint for a very long time. At 5 years old, Magdalena was known for her hardcore devotion to God and for the fact people thought she saw Jesus. She would have mystic heavenly visions, but with heavenly apparitions, there are also demonic ones to go with them. At some point, her heavenly visions slowed down, or the diabolical ones took over, because it said she made a pact with the devil. She goes on to become abbess of her convent, which is good since everyone wanted her to be, but bad since she was severe in her acts of penance and ordered her sisters to do the same. Magdalena would scare the other sisters and force them to confess to severe sins. Some would cry, but others went to a possessed state where they'd roll on the floor and contort their bodies before eventually going back to normal. She encouraged the nuns to use iron-tipped whips to self-inflict penance on themselves, and all this while she was being guided by the devil himself. In 1543 she falls extremely ill, and it's then that the priest suspects that she's possessed by a demon, so she started convulsing when trying to confess. The Inquisitor is brought in and she reveals that all those years ago when everyone thought she had a vision of Jesus, it was actually the devil that she met. He had promised her fame and respect as long as she would obey him always, and so she agreed at 5 years old. And that is it for today's video, guys. Demons possess nuns. I actually like that trope. I like movies like that. I haven't seen The Nun yet. I will one day, but I do like these tropes, honestly. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. As always, I'm your host Ayman Hasan, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. And as someone who had an elevated sense of lustful Either way, I guess we'll never really figure it out. Either way, I guess we'll never. With another nun called Bartolomea. Benedetto was interrogated to find out why she had engaged in a bunch of sexual acts with a nun